full guide to reading because our attention spans are cooked. So I've had a lot of people question how really to start reading because they want to get into reading. They understand that it's important, but for a lot of people, it is really difficult. Talking to a lot of my friends, a lot of them claim that they literally can't read. So in this video, we're basically going to talk all about why you can't read anymore, how to start reading and the benefits of reading and everything like that. But first, if you like this kind of content, guys, definitely hit the subscribe button. I've got my book that I actually just released in the description below if you want to check it out, but let's go. First things first, I don't know if you guys know this, but I read a lot. I made a few videos on books and reading, but I read a ton. This is my wall of books that I have. There's a few dozen more. That's another picture of some books. There's a few more books in my cupboard, and then there's a whole office, another room in my house full of books that I don't own all of the books in that second room, but I do read a lot of them, and I own a few of them. So yeah, I do read a lot, all kinds of things. You can see the 5 a.m. Club. That's actually a book I bought like a few days ago, maybe a week ago. US Constitution, a bunch of different books on everything from finance to Robert Greene's books, Diary of a CEO. You've probably recognized 48 Laws of Power. What else is in there? Like just literally all kinds of books on basically everything. I read a lot, and it's definitely one of the best things I ever did to improve my life. It's probably one of the things I'm the most grateful for. I started reading at 7, which is very unusual for a lot of people to just start reading lots and lots of books at such a young age, and I'm incredibly grateful for it because it set me up in a very good position in life. But basically it gave me, not only did I you start reading one book and it leads to another and you just read and read and read. Not only did it give me a good hobby, but it also gave me the identity of a smart person. I remember, might sound stupid for some people, but they've probably clicked off. For anyone that actually understands this, they're still watching and they're probably nodding their head. The identity you have in life is so incredibly important. I remember before I was 7, I was just kind of like just normal at school. Nobody really had their own identity yet. And then from then on, because I was reading, I had the identity of a smart person. Whenever I was in a social group, I was one of the people that people would turn to ask questions like, what does that word mean? That kind of thing. And that sounds dumb, but it is actually really, really important. Positive reinforcement from a young age is something that we're only just starting to understand in the science. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the fact that I had the identity of a smart person from a young age, that I realized a few of my talents. Like, I don't know if reading actually helped me do this or if it just helped me realize I had this, but I've got a really good memory for just facts, like random information. Like I remember I read recently that the Prime Minister that served in between Winston Churchill's 2 terms was Clement Attlee, and I've just remembered that now. Like I've only read it once or twice. And yeah, so I've also always had an ambition for learning. I like learning new skills, and I think I'm pretty good at teaching as well, although it's something I've definitely got a lot better at. My patience has increased for sure. So yeah, most of all, reading kept me, the biggest reason reading was good for me was because it kept me away from a lot of bad habits. A lot of people I know, and probably basically everyone you know, just scrolls and stuff when they're in their own free time. And this section is important, by the way, which is why I'm talking about it a lot. But a lot of people, just scroll, they do bad habits, they don't actually learn anything. And I've always, I still scroll a little bit and stuff. Like I'm no saint, I've done bad things, but reading has been a really good cornerstone because I've always sort of turned to books at least a good portion of the time. Even in the times where I haven't read as much as others, I still, read books and stuff, which has been good for my learning, and it's kept me away from the really, really bad habits. So yeah, overall, benefits of reading: intelligence, happiness, focus, and mindfulness. That's probably going to be the longest part of the video. I just wanted to make you guys fully understand how important reading is and how the value in it and how good of a person it's going to make you. So first of all, part 1, why you can't read anymore. If you look around at people our age, it's pretty obvious that everybody scrolls and basically nobody reads. Like I look at my coworkers, I talk to my friends, I talk to people my parents' age, family, friends. Basically nobody reads. Everybody claims that they don't have enough time, which is, I get it. Like when you're working full time, you have family commitments and stuff. It is difficult. That said, you still have weekends. I still watch people do bad habits, and unless you're a complete saint, everybody does bad habits, so they could be. Instead of doing those habits, they could be reading. And reading is extremely important. For me personally, I probably read about, it depends on the day. If I've got a full day, like working 9 hours and I've got videos to upload, I might only read like not even an hour some days. But generally I would say I read 2 to 4 hours a day, which is a lot. Like you don't need to do that, by the way, but I think it is really good to be reading at least a few hours a week. The big problem is that most people complain that they literally can't read. I think that's actually true. When they say they can't read, obviously they can. They know what letters are, but it's just very difficult for them to read for two real reasons. One is the modern attention span, and two is the modern ambition crisis. And we're going to go through both of these things. In short, attention span, it's difficult to focus on books. Ambition crisis, it's like you don't really have an interest in learning and actually improving yourself. So first of all, the modern attention span. Basically, most people are incapable of concentrating on a book, and so they can read. There's nothing stopping them from being able to read, but they're incapable of like focusing for more than a period of like 10 seconds on a book. If you've ever tried to read and you've like you've read for like a minute and then you realize that you've just been rereading the same sentence over and over again and you have no idea what it means, that's completely relatable. Like you just sort of zone out and start thinking about other things while your eyes keep going down the page. That's like most people do that, and that's because our attention spans have been absolutely fried because of a thing called hyperstimulation. I actually talk about that in my book. It's a big part of the first chapter, but basically hyperstimulation it means that you've been overly stimulated for a very long time in ways like, I did a bad job of explaining that. Hyperstimulation is chronic overstimulation of dopamine. So basically you're doing a lot of very, very stimulating bad habits over a long period of time, and that destroys your ability to focus. For example, short form content, when you're swiping through TikToks or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, anything like that, that is destroying your ability to pay attention because they're very, very high dopamine and they're very quick. If you don't know what dopamine is, I'll link a video in the description about it. It's basically the hormone that controls your motivation, and it also impacts your mood, focus, etc. But basically, when you consume a lot of short form content, it destroys your ability to concentrate on longer things like reading and podcasts, because you're training your brain to be very, very receptive to short, quick bursts of dopamine, and as such, you can't concentrate on longer things anymore. This is a real thing. You can see people who like scroll a lot on social media, they literally can't read books or anything anymore, and it's been proven as well because of a thing called neuroadaptation. The second reason that your attention span is probably pretty bad is because of competing forms of entertainment. So not only is it difficult to concentrate when you actually want to read, but there's just other things that are around you that are easier to do. So for example, like checking social media, having your phone next to you, beeping notifications, movies, Netflix, music, etc. Especially if you live a very, very busy life and you come home from work and it's like, okay, I can read for an hour before bed, or I can scroll or play a video game. It's very, very easy. Do you understand the difference between those two? We're not talking about like we're not talking about focus being broken anymore. We're just talking about what you decide to do. When you get home from a long day, be honest, most people don't want to read. They want to do something that's higher dopamine. They'll say it's for relaxation, but it's not really for relaxation. If you've ever looked at somebody's brain when they're playing a video game, they're not actually relaxing or unwinding. It's stimulating, and I get that because things like that are fun, but it's very, very difficult to put reading above more stimulating things like movies and video games, because those things just, attack your brain with more dopamine effectively. So they're more stimulating and they're more addictive, and you feel a pull to do those things. That's completely normal. In short, your dopamine has been rewired to make you dependent and addicted to social media and other hyper-stimulating things. This destroys your focus when you're trying to read, and it's pretty difficult to pick something like this over something like this, just because this is way more stimulating. So that's the first reason. The second reason people find it difficult to read our age is basically because of the modern ambition crisis, and you might not have heard this at all. It's actually sort of a term that I've come up with. I haven't really heard many people talk about it exactly, although a lot of people have brushed on different aspects of it, just not the whole thing. Effectively, if you talk to people our age, none of them have goals at all. I'll actually link another fantastic video by me, just glazing myself, that I made on my main channel, which you can check out my main channel as well. Link in the description. I have, way, way more subscribers and way more videos on it. But basically, anyone who's our age, like our is relative, anyone between like 15 to 30, 35, honestly, that's a pretty big range. But most people like that have basically no goals at all. Some of the older people in that range might have some sort of financial goals, but honestly, most people under 23 literally don't even have financial goals at all, because a lot of them are still in uni. So yeah, that's a really, really bad thing. And more than that, not only do they just not have goals, they're not having goals as a symptom of something else, which is that people just our age seem to just not care about becoming better people. They have no real interest in improving themselves and self-improvement and learning new skills and that kind of thing. A lot of them are really only addicted to pleasure and instant gratification. So anything from scrolling and Netflix and that kind of thing, to more social bad habits, like, going out and doing drugs together constantly. Nothing wrong with partying or, drinking and that kind of thing occasionally, but a lot of people our age go to complete excess, and it's not good for your health, and I think it's actually a symptom of depression. So yeah, it's a pretty big issue. This is really underrated, the fact that most people have literally no interest in improving themselves, and they have low self-esteem. They don't actually believe in themselves. They don't have hope for the future, and so they only indulge in things that are bad for them but are kind of pleasurable. So what I'm kind of getting at here is that because nobody learns about topics like health, addiction, purpose, goals, etc., except for me and a few of my boys and a few other people who are interested in that kind of thing, that's not good. It really isn't good to be a person who isn't actually learning or trying to be better at stuff. And it's a really, really bad habit to be very, very comfortable and not want to change or become a better person at all. So in short of this slide, I put way too many words on this slide that I'm not going to read. But in short, people our age they don't really have an interest in becoming better. They don't have goals that they're working towards. And I think a few reasons for that are social conformism, the fact that they're incredibly comfortable, the fact that they don't believe in themselves, and the fact that they have so many other things that they could be doing to stimulate themselves, and they'd rather do that than actually plan for the future and invest in their lives. And I think we're seeing that in mental health statistics, to be honest. But that's all I'm going to talk about here. And that's seriously bad, by the way. I didn't really link that back to reading that much, but basically this stops people from reading because, one, reading isn't as fun as the other things that we already mentioned that, and two, because they have no interest in reading non-fiction and actually learning about topics like these and a million other useful topics. And as such, most people like our age are very, very stupid. Like if you've had a conversation, not if you've had a conversation, of course you have, when you have a conversation, I should say, the next time with someone our age, just pay attention to the things they're actually saying. You can even try and bring up a topic that you sort of might know a few things about that's a little bit more intellectual, and just see the kind of things they say. Most people our age are very, very stupid. They have a very, very small knowledge base because school is incredibly ineffective, and they have no interest in actually learning on their own, which causes them to be quite stupid. But anyway, part 2. The important part of this video, how to start reading more. The single best tip I could give you to reading more is to go and buy a book immediately after this video. Now, it doesn't have to be mine. I'm going to glaze myself for the next minute. I'm not ashamed of selling my own stuff because I think everyone has the right to sell stuff if they're actually contributing to society and trying to improve people's lives. But the tip is to go and buy a book straight away after this video. You don't have to buy a book, by the way. You can borrow one from a library. Libraries are fantastic. You can actually sign up for a library online and just download an ebook. If you want to get other books, other ebooks, you can DM me on Instagram and I'll give you a hand finding them cheap or for free. But yeah, go and buy a book straight away after this video. The person who takes action is always going to be the furthest ahead in life. So the person who pauses this video right now or pauses it when they're finished and then immediately goes and buys a book you're going to be light years ahead compared to everyone else in life, because everyone else thinks about it or they just don't do it at all. So by spending money on a book is one of the best things you can do. Think about all the money that you spent on video games and junk food. I literally have friends that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars in a video game and they won't buy a single $10 book to try and improve their lives. It's ridiculous. So go and do that right away. If you're interested in my book, I've just released it like a week ago, I think, and it's basically about people our age, how our generation is subhuman, and how to improve your life. I've got it 75% off right now, just for a little bit of time, so the people who are actually really interested can get it a little bit cheaper. But these are a few of the things we talk about. We talk about why our generation is subhuman. We go through the self-improvement runway, which I've actually put a picture of here if you want to have a look at it really quickly. It's a guide to improving your life, and obviously we go through it in detail throughout the chapters in this book. We talk about building a winner's mindset. We talk about crushing the rut. We talk about leveling up across all areas of your life, setting goals, discovering your purpose. And honestly, there's a lot more in there. I didn't really forget about it. I just kind of ran out of space, but there's definitely other stuff I forgot about. This book is going to be absolutely fantastic for anyone who buys it and wants to improve their life, and I'd highly recommend you check it out. But as far as what you should read, the answer is going to make a lot of people angry because you want a concrete answer, but effectively just read whatever you want. If you don't read at all right now, you're on level 0. As soon as you pick up a book, you're on level 1. So it makes sense to just read whatever you're interested in. As far as what I'd actually recommend you read, here are a few books on the screen, which you can screenshot this or pause it or whatever and try and find these. All of these books are either books that I've read or books that I have and am planning on reading. I've read that, haven't read that one yet, reading that currently, read that, have it and haven't read it yet, read that and read that. All of these books are fantastic on a variety of different topics. They're all non-fiction. In my opinion, my favorite genre to read is self-improvement, which is obviously a non-fiction genre. My favorite fiction genre to read is probably, I don't even know if I have it. I have a few favorites. I like horror, I like fantasy, I like action. They're all good genres, but basically just read whatever you want. The problem you want to get to, each level of reading has a problem. So the problem for you right now, if you don't read at all because you're on level 0 of reading, is that you just don't read at all. That is the problem. As soon as you start reading, you want to be progressing towards the problem that I have right now, which is having way too many books open at the same time. I'm pretty sure I've got a book on World War II open right now. I've got, what else do I have? Pretty sure I have, bloody hell, my laptop's dying. I've got, no, I just finished that one actually, we're all good. I do have that Dopamine book open as well now. I've got like 4 or 5 other books open at the same time, and it's kind of frustrating, but that's actually a really good problem to have because it means you are reading a lot, which is good for your health. So if you want to find any of these books, I'll link them all in the description, or you can DM me on Instagram and I'll give you a hand. If you're interested in specific topics as well, you can DM me on Instagram or comment below, or shoot me an email if you want, but probably DMing me is better, and I'll give you a hand finding stuff. But yeah, literally just read anything that you're interested in until you have way too many books. Then you can start trying to set some advanced rules, like maybe you're only allowed to read 2 books at a time, and that kind of thing to help yourself out. As far as how to read and how to actually get over being constantly distracted and having a shitty attention span, here's what you want to do. First, competing entertainment is going to be your biggest problem, so silence your phone. I know a lot of people try reading with their phone next to them, or they try reading when the TV's on, or anything like that. For me personally, sometimes I read in this, like, we have like just a couch inside with a coffee table, and I like to read there, but I don't read there when the TV's on or when people are talking because it's just too distracting. Even though I can zone them out, I will find that I get distracted and my eyes glaze over and I read the same sentence a few times more often, and it's really annoying. So I'll just move. For you, that's going to be on steroids because you're very, very distractible at this point. So take your phone, take anything that could be beeping at you or anything, go and put it in a completely different room. And then just sit somewhere, hopefully quiet. Outside is actually good as well, and just read without any kind of competing entertainment in the way. If you're reading on a device like a laptop, just try and turn off notifications. Obviously, if you're reading on your phone, which is something you can do, although I wouldn't recommend it, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. There isn't really a solution to that because obviously you're holding your phone. The best thing you can do is just silence it and then try and, maybe get a physical book or an e-reader or something that isn't going to distract you as much. Attention span is going to be your second biggest problem once you deal with that, because that's a pretty easy solution, the first one. And yeah, there isn't an easy solution to attention span, but the truth is that you can improve your attention span, and you can actually improve it really quickly. You can improve it probably 90%. You can probably triple your attention span within a week probably if you do what I'm about to say. Basically, the reason your attention span is poor is because of a thing called neuroadaptation that I mentioned at the start of the video. Neuroadaptation is when the neurons in your brain evolve for different purposes. In this case, we're talking about dopamine. So because you're constantly exposing yourself to things like short form content, what actually happens is your brain becomes used to it, it develops a tolerance, and you stop releasing as much dopamine from it, which means when you watch that same short form content, it doesn't actually give you the same dopamine rush as it used to. And that might sound good, kind of, but unfortunately what that means is that when you try and do something that's not very stimulating, like reading, that's actually harder than it was before, because it's not just short form content that releases less dopamine. Everything releases less dopamine when you're having to focus on it. Because the short form content isn't as stimulating, you're now addicted to that because you have to watch more and more to try and make yourself get the same dopamine rush. And reading is difficult because you've conditioned your brain to be used to short form content. So what you actually need to do is literally just start consuming less short form content. As soon as you cut it out of your day and you don't do it anywhere near as much and you read more, you'll actually find your brain starts to neuroadapt in the opposite direction. You start to get better at reading when you associate it with, your happiness and you enjoy doing it and you're doing it more. You get better at it. So what I'd recommend you do is you set short focused periods. It can be as short as 15 minutes. I wouldn't go any shorter than that. Even if your attention span is absolutely munted, don't sit there for less than 15 minutes. You don't have to read, but just set a rule that you can't do anything else. You have to sit there and try and read for 15 minutes. Get rid of all the distractions and just try and read the book. What you need to understand as well is the meditation principle. So when you're reading, if you get a random thought and you're like eyes glaze over and you do that thing where you just reread the same sentence and you don't even know what it is, that's really annoying. I get that that would make you angry, but you can't get angry about that. What you need to understand is the same thing you need to understand with meditation, which is basically when you get distracted and you lose your concentration, that's actually not a bad thing. That process of getting distracted and then bringing your focus back is kind of like doing a push-up, and it's working your brain's concentration muscle, so to speak. So when you do that, don't get angry. Just think about that as one rep. Every time you lose focus and bring it back, you're actually improving your concentration, even if you don't realize it. And the next time you come to read, you'll find you do that less and less, and you'll become better. Unless, of course, you take big breaks from reading and you go back to watching short form content, in which case you're doing the opposite. And when you come back, you'll find you're not as good at it effectively. And you can read out loud if you have to. If you are struggling to concentrate, you can start mouthing the words, and you can even read out loud to yourself and focus if you're really, really struggling. Just as a way to it's kind of like doing a push-up on your knees. It's like, it's just going to help you out if you're very like struggling a lot to concentrate. And don't worry, if you're struggling to concentrate, it's not because you're dumb. It's not because you don't know how to read. It's just because your brain has literally been polluted with Instagram reels and things that have literally never existed in the history of the universe. They've only existed for the last 10 years, and they're really not good for your focus. But yeah, as far as getting into reading before bed is a fantastic habit to get into. Library, also super good. It's free if you live in Queensland in Australia, it's free. I don't know about the rest of the world. If you live in a first world country, it's probably free as well. And yeah, don't pretend you don't have time. If you don't think you have time to read a book, send me a screenshot of your screen time on your phone. You probably have more than 6 hours screen time at an absolute minimum, and you probably spend multiple hours a day scrolling on social media, which is, if it's more than 2 hours, you're spending more than a month a year on social media. If it's more than 4, you're spending more than 2 months a year straight on social media. So don't pretend you can't read, you absolutely can. But yeah, guys, that is a video. That's everything we've covered in this video. If you want to screenshot that or go back, a bunch of links in the description to check out, including my book, and I'll also link all the other books below. DM me if you need any help, check out my main channel, hit the subscribe button, email me if you have any questions professionally, and yeah, have a good one. Hope this video helps you. Peace.